Today, we are diving deep into a question that has fascinated thinkers for literally thousands of years. It's a question that really gets to the heart of, well, what it means to be human. I mean, what are we all really chasing? Is it about getting rich, finding happiness, just being a good person? We all ask ourselves this stuff. And, it turns out that ancient philosophy has this incredibly organized and profound way of looking at the whole thing.
In Hindu philosophy, they call this framework the Purusharthas. Now, don't think of this as some strict rule book. It's much more like a map that charts the big, fundamental goals that really drive us as human beings. It's basically a guide to what we're all after, one way or another.
So what does that word even mean? Purushartha literally translates to the object of human pursuit. Simple as that. It's any key goal or major aim that a person strives for in life. And this map, it outlines 4 of these epic pursuits. Okay, so let's start with the first 3 paths on our map. And I have a feeling these are going to sound pretty familiar, because let's be honest, they're the tangible, real-world goals that take up most of our time and energy.
The 3 big ones are Artha, Kama, and Dharma. These cover wealth and security, pleasure and enjoyment, and, our sense of duty in doing the right thing. Let's see how they all lock together. See, what's really cool is how these 3 are all connected. Artha, that's all your stuff. Your house, your car, money in the bank. Kama is the enjoyment of all that stuff. It's the pleasure you get from the world. And Dharma? Well, Dharma is the how. It's the ethical, righteous path you're supposed to follow to get both Artha and Kama. It's kind of the foundation for the other 2.
So, these 3 aims seem to cover pretty much everything we could ever want, right? But the source text asks a really critical question here. Are the rewards you get from all this work permanent? Do they actually last? And this brings us to the big problem, the major catch if you make any of these 3 your ultimate end-all be-all goal. They all share one fundamental flaw. They fade. They are, by their very nature, temporary.
The whole philosophy here really boils down to the difference between 2 ideas, anitya, which means transient or temporary, and nitya, which means eternal. Our first 3 goals, Dharma, Artha, and Kama, they all land squarely in that transient bucket, which of course implies there's got to be something else, something that's eternal.
The text uses this really powerful analogy to nail this point home. Just like the crops you harvest will eventually perish, the rewards you get from good deeds will also perish. The takeaway is huge. Nothing you can acquire through your actions, no matter how noble, can ever be permanent.
So if the first 3 goals are all destined to just fade away, what's left? Well, this leads us to the 4th and final Purushartha. And it's not just another choice on the list. It's presented as the one true solution to this whole problem of impermanence. This 4th aim is called moksha, which means liberation, and it's defined as the one and only eternal pursuit. Unlike the others, the result isn't some temporary prize, but the final, complete end to the whole cycle of suffering and rebirth. It's the ultimate, permanent goal. The absolute finality of moksha is just captured so perfectly in this one line from the scriptures. He does not return again to this world. That's it. It signifies a complete liberation, an end to the endless cycle of striving and losing. So, we've set up moksha as the supreme, eternal goal. But this is where things get really fascinating, and honestly, a little bit mind-bending. What does it actually mean to go after liberation?
So the logical next question is pretty obvious, right? Okay, got it. Moksha is the ultimate goal. So how do I get it? What do I have to do to create or achieve this state of liberation?
And right here, the philosophy just does a complete 180. The answer is, it isn't. Moksha isn't created. It's not achieved. It's not acquired. So what in the world is it then?
Let's break this down, because this idea is just massive. Moksha isn't something you can produce, because how can you create something in time that is, by definition, eternal? It can't be modified, because your true self is considered unchanging. It can't be purified, because that self is already seen as inherently flawless. And finally, it can't be reached, because you can't travel to a place where you already are.
So this is the whole point. This is the big reveal. Moksha is not an outcome of action, it's an outcome of knowledge. It is the simple, direct realization of the eternal, unchanging, and ever-present nature that this philosophy says you already are. It's not about becoming something new. It's about understanding what you've always been.
All right, so what have we actually learned on this wild philosophical ride? Let's quickly recap the main points from this incredible framework for life's purpose.
First off, the normal things we chase in life, doing the right thing, getting wealth, having fun, all of their rewards are temporary. They just don't last. Second, that fourth aim, moksha, or liberation, is the only one that's considered eternal and supreme. And maybe most importantly, this ultimate goal isn't something you go out and get through your actions. It's something you realize through knowledge, just by recognizing your own true, ever-present self. And that leaves us with one last, kind of big thought to chew on. This ancient map of what we're all pursuing suggests a pretty radical shift in how we see things. What if the ultimate goal of life, that grand finish line we're all racing toward, isn't a destination we have to get to at all, but it's actually our starting point, just finally seen and understood with total clarity for the very first time?